Stop everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about working in Australia. If you're planning to come to Australia on a work visa, if you're currently on a temporary work visa, or if you're an employer sponsoring workers, the game has completely changed. The visa pathway that thousands of people have relied on for years, the pathway that has brought skilled workers to Australia and helped them build their futures, that pathway as you know it is gone. This isn't a rumor. This isn't speculation. This is happening right now, and if you don't understand what's changing, you could find yourself on the wrong side of history, watching opportunities slip away while others who prepared properly move forward with their Australian dreams. The temporary skill shortage visa, the one everyone knows as the 482, the visa that has been the backbone of employer-sponsored migration for so long, has been replaced. In its place stands something entirely new, something that operates under completely different rules, something that will require you to think differently about how you approach working in Australia. The Skills in Demand visa, the new pathway that launched just recently, isn't just a name change or a minor tweak to existing rules. This is a fundamental reimagining of how temporary work migration functions in Australia, and whether you're prepared for it or not, this is the new reality you have to navigate. Welcome back to Aussie Global Affairs, and if you're new here, you've just found the channel that will give you straight answers about Australian immigration, no fluff, no outdated information, just the facts you need to make informed decisions about your future. Today we're doing a deep dive into the most significant change to Australian work visas in recent memory, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happened, why it matters, and most importantly, what you need to do about it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because changes like this happen fast, and you need to stay informed if you want to succeed in your Australian immigration journey. So let's start with the basics. What exactly was the temporary skill shortage visa? For those of you who might not be familiar, the 482 visa was the primary pathway for skilled workers to come to Australia temporarily under employer sponsorship. It allowed Australian businesses to sponsor overseas workers when they couldn't find suitable Australian workers to fill positions. The visa came in different streams, short-term and medium-term, depending on the occupation and circumstances. It provided a pathway for workers to live and work in Australia, and in many cases, it offered a route to permanent residency through subsequent visa applications. Millions of workers have used this visa pathway over the years. It's brought talent from every corner of the globe to Australian shores. Engineers from India, chefs from Italy, nurses from the Philippines, software developers from Pakistan, tradespeople from the United Kingdom, professionals from every conceivable background and nationality. The 482 visa has been their ticket to Australian opportunities, their chance to build better lives, their pathway to achieving dreams they thought might never be possible. But the world has changed. The Australian economy has evolved. Labor market dynamics have shifted. The skills Australia needs today aren't necessarily the same skills it needed 5 or 10 years ago. Immigration priorities have been reassessed. Government policies have been reviewed. And the conclusion reached by policymakers was clear. The old system, as successful as it had been in many ways, wasn't meeting Australia's current and future needs effectively enough. It was time for something new. It was time for the Skills in Demand visa. Now, before we go any further, let me be crystal clear about something. The 482 visa isn't being abolished overnight for everyone. If you currently hold a 482 visa, you don't need to panic. Your existing visa remains valid until its expiry date. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and find that your visa has been canceled. Your rights under your current visa are protected. But here's what's changed. New applications, new sponsorships, new pathways forward, those are now processed under the Skills in Demand framework. The door you used to enter might still be open for you to stay until your visa expires, but anyone trying to enter that door now will find it replaced by a completely different entrance with completely different requirements. So, what exactly is the Skills in Demand visa? Let's break this down comprehensively because understanding the nuances is absolutely critical. The Skills in Demand visa is the Australian government's new approach to temporary skilled migration. It's designed to be more responsive to genuine skills shortages, more flexible for both employers and workers, more aligned with Australia's economic priorities, and ultimately more effective at bringing the right talent to the right places at the right times. The visa operates under several different pathways, and this is where things get interesting. There's the Specialist Skills pathway, designed for highly skilled workers earning above certain salary thresholds and working in occupations that Australia has identified as being in critical demand. There's the Core Skills pathway, aimed at skilled workers in occupations that are in demand but perhaps not at the absolute highest skill levels. And there's the Essential Skills pathway, targeting workers in occupations that might not be highly paid but are genuinely needed in specific sectors or regions. Now let's talk about what makes these pathways different from the old 482 system. First and foremost, the focus on genuine skills shortages is much sharper. The government has tightened the criteria around demonstrating that a genuine shortage exists. Employers can't simply say they can't find Australian workers. They need to prove it more rigorously. They need to demonstrate that they've undertaken genuine recruitment efforts. They need to show that the salary being offered is competitive and meets minimum thresholds. They need to establish that the role genuinely requires the skills that the sponsored worker possesses. Second, salary thresholds have become more important. Under the new system, there are clear minimum salary requirements that vary depending on the pathway. The Specialist Skills pathway has the highest threshold, reflecting the fact that genuinely specialized roles command higher salaries in the market. The Core Skills pathway has a moderate threshold, ensuring that sponsored workers aren't being brought in to undercut local wage standards. Even the Essential Skills pathway has requirements around ensuring fair wages are paid. Third, occupation lists play a different role. Instead of the old system where certain occupations were simply on or off the list, the new approach categorizes occupations more dynamically. Some occupations might be eligible for longer visa grants. Others might be restricted to shorter periods. Some might be eligible for all pathways. Others might only qualify for specific pathways. The system is designed to be more nuanced and responsive to changing economic conditions. Fourth, pathways to permanent residency have been clarified and in some cases improved. One of the criticisms of the old 482 system, particularly the short-term stream, was that it left workers in limbo with no clear pathway forward. The Skills in Demand visa addresses this by providing clearer routes to permanent residency for workers in genuinely needed occupations, particularly those on the Specialist Skills and Core Skills pathways. Fifth, there's greater emphasis on labor market testing and genuine need. The days of superficial recruitment efforts are over. The government wants to see evidence of real attempts to find local workers. Job advertisements need to be comprehensive. Recruitment processes need to be genuine. Wages need to reflect market rates. The focus is on ensuring that temporary skilled migration complements the local workforce rather than replacing it inappropriately. Now let's talk about what this means for different groups of people. If you're a worker currently on a 482 visa, you're probably wondering what happens when your visa expires. Can you apply for a new visa? Will you need to meet the new requirements? The answer is yes. When you apply for a new visa, you'll be applying under the Skills in Demand framework. Your previous 482 visa doesn't grandfather you into the old system permanently. However, your existing work experience in Australia, your established relationship with your employer, and your proven skills will all work in your favor when applying under the new system. If you're a prospective worker who is planning to apply for a 482 visa, your pathway has changed. You need to understand which Skills in Demand pathway you're eligible for. You need to ensure your occupation is on the relevant occupation list. You need to verify that your qualifications and experience meet the requirements. You need to understand the salary thresholds and make sure any job offer meets them. You need to work with your prospective employer to ensure they understand the new sponsorship requirements and are prepared to meet them. If you're an employer who has been sponsoring workers under the 482 system, you have homework to do. The sponsorship requirements have changed, the evidence you need to provide has increased, the standards you need to meet are higher. You can't simply rely on how you've done things in the past. You need to update your recruitment processes, review your salary structures, understand the new occupation lists, and ensure your sponsorship applications meet the new standards. Failure to adapt could result in sponsorship applications being refused, which wastes time and money and leaves positions unfilled. Let's dive deeper into each of the skills and demand pathways so you understand exactly what's required. The Specialist Skills Pathway is designed for the cream of the crop, the highly specialized professionals that Australia desperately needs. Think senior software engineers, specialist medical professionals, high-level engineers, experienced researchers, senior managers with rare skills. The salary threshold for this pathway is substantial, currently set at a level that reflects genuine specialist expertise. If you're applying through this pathway, you need to demonstrate not just competence, but genuine expertise in your field. The benefits of the Specialist Skills Pathway are significant. Visa grants can be for longer periods, up to 4 years in many cases. The pathway to permanent residency is clearer and often faster. Family members can accompany you with full work and study rights. The processing priority is often higher, but the requirements match the benefits. Your occupation needs to be on the specialist list. Your salary needs to meet the high threshold. Your employer needs to demonstrate why your specialist skills are genuinely needed. Your qualifications need to be verified and recognized. Your English language skills need to be at a competent level. The core skills pathway is what most skilled workers will utilize. This is designed for the broad range of skilled occupations that Australia needs, but that don't necessarily command the highest salaries or represent the most specialized skills. Think registered nurses, teachers, chefs, accountants, trades workers, mid-level IT professionals. The salary threshold here is moderate but still substantial enough to ensure that sponsored workers are receiving fair wages. Visa grants are typically for up to 4 years, renewable in many cases. Pathways to permanent residency exist, though they may require meeting additional criteria or waiting periods. To qualify for the Core Skills Pathway, your occupation needs to be on the Core Skills Occupation List. Your employer needs to demonstrate genuine recruitment efforts. Your salary needs to meet the minimum threshold, which is indexed annually. Your qualifications need to be appropriate for the role. Your English needs to be at least functional, though higher levels may be required depending on the occupation. Your health and character need to meet Australian standards. The Essential Skills Pathway is the newest and perhaps most interesting addition. This pathway recognizes that some occupations, while not highly paid, are genuinely essential to certain sectors or regions of Australia. Think care workers in aged care facilities, agricultural workers in regional areas, hospitality workers in tourism regions. These roles might not command high salaries, but they're absolutely necessary for those sectors to function. The Essential Skills Pathway has lower salary thresholds but comes with certain conditions. Visas might be granted for shorter periods initially. They might be restricted to certain regions or sectors. The pathway to permanent residency might be less direct, potentially requiring transitions through regional visas or other programs. But for workers in these occupations, particularly those willing to work in regional Australia, this pathway offers opportunities that simply didn't exist under the old system. Now let's talk about the practical implications of these changes. First, timing matters more than ever. If you were in the middle of preparing a 482 application when the changes took effect, you need to reassess your strategy. Can you still proceed? Do you need to pivot to a different pathway? Do you meet the new requirements? These are questions you need to answer quickly, because delays could be costly. Second, salary negotiations have become more critical. If you're in discussions with an Australian employer about sponsorship, you need to ensure the salary offered meets the threshold for your intended pathway. Don't accept a verbal offer without verifying the numbers. Don't assume the employer understands the requirements. Do your research, know the thresholds, negotiate accordingly. A job offer that doesn't meet the salary requirements is worthless for visa purposes, no matter how attractive it might seem otherwise. Third, occupation classification matters more than ever. Some occupations have been reclassified or moved between lists. Some have been added, some have been removed. You need to verify exactly where your occupation sits in the new framework. Don't rely on old information. Don't assume things haven't changed. Check the current lists. Verify your occupation code. Ensure you're looking at the right pathway. Fourth, English language requirements remain critical. Depending on your occupation and pathway, you might need competent English, proficient English, or even superior English. These aren't arbitrary categories. They correspond to specific test scores on recognized English tests. You need to understand what level is required for your situation and ensure you can achieve it. If your English isn't strong enough, start improving it now. Take preparation courses. Practice regularly. Take the test when you're ready. Your English score can make or break your application. Fifth, documentation standards have increased. The government wants to see comprehensive evidence of everything you claim. Your qualifications need to be verified through proper channels. Your work experience needs to be documented with detailed references. Your employer's recruitment efforts need to be evidenced with job advertisements, applicant records, and explanations of why local workers weren't suitable. Your salary needs to be documented in employment contracts. Nothing can be vague or assumed. Everything needs to be proven. Let me share some real-world examples to illustrate how these changes affect actual people. Consider Priya, a software developer from India who was planning to apply for a 482 visa to work with a tech startup in Melbourne. Under the old system, her occupation was on the list. Her employer was willing to sponsor her, and her qualifications were appropriate. Under the new system, she needs to determine if she qualifies for the specialist skills pathway or the core skills pathway, which depends on her salary offer and specific role. If her salary is below the specialist threshold but above the core threshold, she can proceed through the core skills pathway. If it's below both, her employer needs to increase the offer or she needs to look elsewhere. Consider Ahmed, a chef from Pakistan who has been working in Australia on a 482 visa for 3 years. His visa is expiring in 6 months, and he wants to continue working with his current employer and eventually gain permanent residency. Under the old system, his pathway forward was uncertain because chefs were on the short-term list. Under the new system, chefs can qualify for the core skills pathway, which offers clearer pathways to permanent residency if salary and other requirements are met. Ahmed needs to work with his employer to ensure his new sponsorship application meets all the requirements and that his salary meets the threshold. Consider Sarah, a care worker from the Philippines who wants to work in an aged care facility in regional Australia. Under the old 482 system, her options were extremely limited because care workers generally weren't on the main occupation lists. Under the new system, the essential skills pathway might offer her an opportunity, particularly if she's willing to work in a regional area where aged care workers are desperately needed. She needs to understand the specific requirements, the regional restrictions, and the salary thresholds for this pathway. Now let's address some common questions and concerns that people have about these changes. One of the biggest questions is whether the new system is harder or easier than the old one. The answer is, it depends. For genuinely skilled workers in genuinely needed occupations being offered fair salaries, the new system might actually be more straightforward in some ways. The pathways are clearer. The criteria are more transparent. The routes to permanent residency are better defined. But for workers or employers who were cutting corners under the old system, who were offering below-market salaries, who were in occupations of questionable demand, the new system is definitely harder. And that's intentional. The government wants to ensure integrity in the system. Another common question is, what happens to workers who are partway through their pathway to permanent residency under the old system? If you're on a 482 visa and were planning to apply for permanent residency after a certain period, Do those plans still work? Generally, yes. Transition provisions exist to protect workers who were legitimately on pathway under the old system. However, you'll need to meet the requirements that exist at the time you apply for permanent residency, which means you need to stay informed about any further changes. People also ask whether it's worth proceeding with Australian work migration given all these changes and uncertainties. This is a deeply personal question, but here's my perspective. Australia still needs skilled workers. The economy is growing. The population is aging. Skill shortages are real and acute in many sectors. The changes to the visa system aren't about closing doors. They're about ensuring the right people come through the right doors. If you have genuine skills, if you're willing to be fairly paid, if you can meet the requirements, then yes, Australia still offers incredible opportunities. Let's talk about some practical steps you should take right now based on your situation. If you're currently on a 482 visa, schedule time with your employer to discuss your future. Understand when your visa expires. Start planning your next steps early. Verify that your occupation remains on the relevant list. Ensure your salary meets or exceeds the thresholds for the pathway you'll need. Gather documentation of your Australian work experience. Consider improving your English score if it's marginal. Look into permanent residency options if you're eligible. If you're planning to apply for an Australian work visa, reassess your situation completely. Identify which skills and demand pathway you're eligible for. Verify your occupation is on the appropriate list. Confirm the salary threshold you need to meet. Ensure your qualifications will be recognized. Prepare for English testing if you haven't already. Research employers who sponsor workers in your field. Consider whether regional options might offer better opportunities. Understand the full timeline and costs involved. If you're an employer, audit your current sponsorship practices. Review the new requirements comprehensively. Update your recruitment processes to meet the new standards. Review your salary structures to ensure they meet thresholds. Train your HR team on the new system. Consider engaging a registered migration agent to assist with complex cases. Document everything meticulously. Plan ahead for sponsorships rather than treating them as last-minute solutions. The reality is that change is always unsettling, especially when it affects something as important as your future in a new country. The transition from the 482 visa to the Skills and Demand visa represents significant change. But change also brings opportunity. The new system offers clearer pathways to permanent residency for many workers. It provides better protection against exploitation through stronger salary requirements. It creates new opportunities for workers in essential occupations through the Essential Skills pathway. It offers faster routes for genuinely specialized workers through the Specialist Skills pathway. The key to navigating this successfully is staying informed, being flexible, and acting strategically. Don't cling to outdated information. Don't proceed based on assumptions. Don't delay taking necessary steps. The immigration landscape has changed, and you need to change your approach accordingly. Those who adapt quickly and thoroughly will find opportunities. Those who resist or delay will find themselves left behind. One final thought before we wrap up. Australian immigration policy will continue to evolve. What's true today might change tomorrow. New occupation lists will be released. Salary thresholds will be indexed. Requirements will be refined. This is the nature of immigration systems worldwide. They respond to economic conditions, political priorities, and social needs. The best thing you can do is commit to staying informed, being adaptable, and taking action when opportunities arise. Thank you so much for watching Aussie Global Affairs. If this video helped clarify the changes from the 482 visa to the Skills and Demand visa, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps us reach more people who need this information. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell because immigration changes happen constantly and you need to stay ahead of them. Share this video with anyone you know who's planning to work in Australia or who's currently on a temporary work visa. Knowledge is power in the immigration game, And the more informed our community is, the better everyone's outcomes will be. Drop a comment below telling me your situation. Are you currently on a 482 visa? Are you planning to apply for a skills in demand visa? What concerns do you have about these changes? I read every comment and I'll do my best to point you in the right direction. Remember, the 482 visa era has ended, but the opportunities for skilled workers in Australia haven't disappeared. They've just taken a new form, and those who understand that form and adapt to it will be the ones who succeed. Stay informed, stay proactive, stay positive, and I'll see you in the next video with more immigration updates and insights. Until then, take care and good luck with your Australian journey.